After a 90-mile onslaught into the wind, we finally arrived in the Dominican Republic, and to top off our desperate need to stop smashing into the waves, we landed in a beautiful bay which we had all to ourselves. A remote corner of this island where no one goes and is lost in time. Huge boulders line the water's edge as if the gods themselves put them there as a playground for us little people. Then a speedboat ripped by us carrying a load of tourists. That's random. It turns out this is a national park, complete with restaurants, bars, and tourist excursions to different beaches, etc. We were desperate for a good meal, one that might actually come served by a waiter with a real menu and options other than rice and beans or darker rice and beans. However, since we'd not checked into the country, we technically were not allowed to go onto land. But since we couldn't check into the country here, then technically we weren't actually here. So technically we did not indulge in first world foods, nor did we go anywhere near the hiking paths or talk to the locals. We just kept to ourselves like good tourists. This was pretty cool. An entire squadron of cuttlefish hung out with us during our stay. Pretty neat.
Onward to Barahona, where we could finally check into the country, but, as it often is, something else was in store for us. With all the heavy rains recently, the rivers had been in flood and washed massive tree trunks and all sorts of other debris into the ocean.
Woo! Woo! John, you gotta do it. Woo!
Woo! Watch out for the tree! Watch out! Okay.
Motoring through a heavy squall, we found ourselves surrounded by floating fields of huge logs and had to tippy-toe our way through the minefield. We were terrified of hitting one and having it damage the boat or prop. In a few areas, we had to push through very carefully.
Shit. This is what Christina thought of the whole ordeal. So let's talk about the process. Sailing in and out of every country requires you to check in on arrival and out when leaving. But in the DR, you also have to check in and out of every port you visit along the way. This requires what they call a despacho. It looks something like this. Although some are literally handwritten like this. You have to get a despacho from the Navy whenever you leave a port and then present it when you arrive in a new port. Sometimes the Navy offices are miles away from the anchorage or marina, giving each port 2 opportunities to get money, beer, or rum from you, which they're not afraid to ask for. Gringos tend to worry that the Navy can make things difficult for them if they do not comply, and this has perpetuated the industry. So, you see all these Navy guys standing on the pier? Well, they all expect some type of reward for their efforts, and our arrival and initial check into the country here in Barahona gave them every opportunity to exploit us. We apparently were very generous because for the next few days these guys were helpful, doing everything from carrying our fuel to protecting our boat while we were out. But to be really honest, we chalked this up to their adoration of Christina, whom they swooned over. We seem to have this problem in every port we went to. Barahona was our first opportunity since leaving the Bahamas to provision and do laundry. Haiti had food, of course, but their options were limited, so we made good use of our day here. One of the things that stood out, sadly, was the amount of trash on land, choking the rivers, and in the sea surrounding the island. But on the optimistic side, some people are pretty clever with what they do with their trash. Arriving in the Santo Domingo Marina was bizarre. We chalked this one up as definitely an adventure. You have to run up through massive tanker ships against a 6-knot current to get to the marina, and then you have to circle around in front of the marina blasting your horn for someone to come out and open a water gate. Since the marina depths were not on any chart and we have a hefty 7-foot keel, we didn't want to go in until we were sure we could make it. We asked the boat guy what the depth was and he just shrugged. I said, "We have a 7-foot keel," and he shrugged again and said, "You should make it." I was not convinced, but yelled back to John that we were good to go, hoping for the best. In the end, we wiggled in. We couldn't back in like other boats because of our dinghy, so we sat there, nose forward, in the mud, in a weird place, but we were right across the street from a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the town of Old Santo Domingo. Okay, we didn't only see trash, but it was hard to see through it. All right, let's try this.
By the time we had left Santo Domingo, we'd been to 5 ports thus far and had enjoyed their game of how much money can we get from the gringo. So our new ploy was to pretend like we couldn't speak Spanish and play dumb. The dumb part was not a far stretch for us, and this seemed to work to a point. The full breakdown of each port and how we returned the tables on this archaic system is in the blog, if you ever want to travel a long way around southern Haiti and the DR.
What are you doing?
Fiddling. Hot water tank. In some kind of lake.
Our last stop was Casa de Campo, an opulent marina. We came into port and wanted to check out of the country here, but in the end, we decided not to bother. The cost would have been well over $150 to do so, and we paid over $180 to check in, not to mention the money and booze donated along the way. Plus, we all seemed to be suffering from some kind of stomach flu by this time. We were pretty much over it. Since we were bound for Puerto Rico, good old US of A, where arriving with our American passports was enough, the decision was made. Sneak out of DR and run like mad across the Mona Passage. We kept looking over our shoulders as we crossed, but honestly, I'm pretty sure they still didn't even know we checked in, much less out.